Welcome to Lagniappe, a program about events, issues, and people. I'm Cory Crowe. I'm joined today by Dr. Travis Smith from the Edward Via College of Osteopathic Medicine, VCOM. Dr. Smith is the team physician for ULM Athletics and also assistant professor of sports medicine, family medicine, and osteopathic manipulation. Welcome. Thanks for being with us today on Lagniappe.
Thanks for having me, Cory. I appreciate it.
You are with me today because we're talking heat-related illnesses, and I know something you deal with athletes a lot, and those guys and gals are used to it. I think the rest of us aren't used to the kind of heat we're seeing.
Well, we have students that come from other states, and so if they're coming down from Illinois and Indiana, they have some acclimatization to do before they're ready to hit the field or go full speed.
You know, there was a tragic story just here in the last week here in North Louisiana, and it was a young lady who I think was from Wisconsin or Michigan, came down to her first job as an archaeologist and was working for the U.S. Forest Service and was over in the Kisatchie National Forest here in North Louisiana. And on her very first day, the heat got her and killed her here in our area. So it's not anything to mess with.
I did hear about that. That is tragic.
The heat is something, I guess, it is hard to prepare for. Do you have to acclimate yourself a bit to this Louisiana heat?
So for Louisiana natives that are accustomed to being exposed to it, it's less of an issue than people who are new to the area. Unless you are a Louisianian who spends all of your time indoors and doesn't really get out to be active very often. So in those cases, it really is critical that you give yourself a little bit of exposure over a period of days to maybe even a couple weeks if you have big plans to do something that's going to cause you to either be exposed or especially exert yourself out in the heat.
We hear a lot about heat prevention tips and things like that, but when do you really need to start worrying about the heat? As somebody that deals with athletes, if it's 80 degrees, 90 degrees, 100 degrees, where do you start to kind of worry with the heat and the humidity mixed together?
So that's something that we use a little more sophisticated sampling than what you're going to see on the normal weather forecast. So today, as many days lately, we have a heat advisory, and that's where there's a measurement of the heat that also takes into account the temperature and the relative humidity measured in the shade. For athletics, we use a wet bulb globe thermometer where that's taking a measurement of a special type of thermometer that takes its reading in direct sunlight, accounting for humidity, wind, cloud cover, and sun angle. And so we put that composite together. That's a better judge of how dangerous the heat is to the human body. But when there's a heat advisory in effect as far as the weather forecast is concerned, you definitely need to take that into account, because when it is not just hot but also humid, you're not able to let your sweat evaporate off of your skin. That's an important way we regulate our body heat. And so if you're sweating but the sweat isn't evaporating off, your body is not cooling itself. And so that's where we get into trouble.
And I think we all know that it's, you get in the shade and it's cooler, and the temperature the Weather Service gives you, that's in the shade. That's not counting being out in the sun. It could be 10 or 15 degrees warmer in full sunlight.
Exactly, and that's why it's important that if you can choose, avoid being exposed to those extreme temperatures on days where there's already a heat advisory warning. If you are choosing whether to have a picnic or whether it's the right day to go out and pick your vegetables out of the garden or things where you have a choice, better to look ahead at the forecast and choose a day where it won't be so extreme.
What are some of the differences? I hear about heat exhaustion and then heat stroke. What are the differences in those two?
So there are a lot of symptoms that you feel and experience that are common between the two. Things that include being pale and clammy, feeling that you are hot. You may have headaches or muscle cramps. You may notice that you're not as coordinated or that you have a hard time concentrating on tasks. Those are similar between the two. When you have heat exhaustion, that's a situation where you're more likely to collapse and it will limit your activity before you reach the point of heat stroke. Heat stroke is where your body temperature spirals out of control in a way that you can't cool yourself down to keep pace. And so you can go from having a body temperature that's still within normal range of if you had a fever of 102, 3 degrees Fahrenheit, but you can reach a tipping point where if your body is not cooling itself, it will sort of have a runaway train effect where your body temperature can go up to 106, 107, 108. And at that point, you start getting potential of damage to your brain and your organs from that temperature.
I guess many of us have a thermometer from COVID times and know how to use that. Is that something we could use for this?
So it can be very helpful to use a thermometer. What I would recommend is that if you are going to use your thermometer, don't have it be an infrared one that you rub across your forehead. That's not going to give you a very accurate reading. You at least want to use one that you place under your tongue, hold it until it gives a reading, and then if your temperature is over 100 degrees, now we're starting to get into fever territory. You obviously need to take a break, cool off, drink some fluids, and allow yourself to normalize before you go back out and expose yourself to more of the same.
I deal with athletes a lot. You deal with athletes, and here on campus at ULM, I see them carrying around gallon jugs of water everywhere they go, trying to hydrate all the time in the days leading up to a game or leading up to football practice or that sort of thing. How much water, like a big athlete like that who's playing in the middle of August, how much water will they consume in a game, and how much weight can they lose on a practice day?
So that varies a lot. Late summer is particularly dangerous in the southeast because of the combination of heat and humidity. We do try to emphasize to our athletes that they need to prehydrate, and so drinking a gallon of water per day for them is totally appropriate because they may be losing between 1 and 3 liters of sweat per hour as they are exerting themselves. An average healthy normal adult with a desk job and no sport, even on a normal day without extreme temperature, is going to lose probably 3 liters of water per day, and you get a third of that back from your food in rough numbers. And so you should be drinking about 2 liters of water a day. That's the 64 ounces. That's kind of the standard recommended. If you are going to be exerting yourself more, then you definitely need to increase that. So a gallon of water on a day where you're exerting yourself plus 1 or 2 sports drinks would be a good idea.
What are some of the things that if you know you're going to have to be out in the heat or you're going to have to be outside, what are some of the things you can do as precautions to get ready to go out in the heat and make that a little easier on yourself?
So making a habit of good hydration every day allows you to bank up some of that fluid that you're likely to lose anyway, and so supplementing that so that you are prehydrating. If you are used to drinking 2 or 3 liters of water a day, give yourself some extra in advance before you go out into the heat, and then make sure that you bring some water along with you so that you can continue to drink as you are active. Other things that can be helpful would be wearing lightweight, breathable clothes, a broad-brimmed hat to keep the sun's UV radiation off of you so that you don't absorb as much heat. Light-colored clothing can be helpful because it can reflect some of that UV away. Other things would be to avoid drinking alcohol, take frequent breaks where you cool off. Keep an eye on how dark yellow your urine is when you go to the bathroom. Ideally, your urine should be so pale yellow that it's almost clear as it comes out of you. If it's darker yellow, then that means that your urine is too concentrated, and that can be an indicator that you're not well hydrated enough.
Talk to me a little bit about a tragedy that happened. Cory Stringer played for the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota, not known for its heat like Louisiana is, and unfortunately lost his life due to heat-related illness.
Absolutely. So just because Minnesota has cold winters doesn't mean that they also don't have hot summers. They're the land of 1,000 lakes by their state motto, and so they do have high humidity in the warmer months. So unfortunately, Cory succumbed to heat stroke and died from that. And so in his honor, a medical and scientific institute, has been founded to research, to spread good information about avoiding heat injury, and they're an excellent resource, especially for athletics, but also for the general population, so that people know what to watch out for. And so if you go to their website at ksi.UConn, University of Connecticut, so that's UCONN.edu, the Cory Stringer Institute can give you a more in-depth look at some of the information that we're discussing today.
I'm speaking with Dr. Travis Smith from the Edward Via College of Osteopathic Medicine, VCOM, on the ULM campus. Dr. Smith, at some point, this goes from kind of a minor thing where you need to cool yourself off to a major thing, and you need to call 911. When do I know that it's time to call 911 for myself or somebody who is with me and witnesses what's going on?
So when it is happening to you, as it gets severe, it can be very difficult to make that call for yourself, because it can impair your mental faculties, and so you may not be well aware of how bad off you are in terms of your symptoms. So if you're going to be out in the heat, it's a good idea to have someone else there along with you so that you can look out for each other. Things that worry us about things getting severe are loss of coordination, loss of your mental acuity, having your heart rate go up even if you stop and take a break and it's not calming back down. If you feel faint, or especially if you collapse, or if someone that you're with is demonstrating these signs, don't take it for granted that it's going to calm down and cool off. If somebody's body temperature gets out of control, then that can be life-threatening in a matter of minutes. So if you have any doubt, it's better to call for assistance.
Joining me is Dr. Travis Smith from the Edward Via College of Osteopathic Medicine. And again, heat-related illness is nothing to play with. For folks to find out more about some of these tips we've talked about today and how to take those precautions to get ready to get out in the heat, where can they go to learn more?
So once again, one of the best resources you can seek out is the Cory Stringer Institute, found at ksi.uconn.edu with the University of Connecticut.
You've been listening to Lagniappe on 90.3 KEDM. To find out about this and other issues, be sure and visit our website at KEDM.org.